I stood at the airport check-in counter, my boarding pass pulled up on my phone, my small carry-on at my feet. 3 days, just 3 days away, alone, no responsibilities, no one needing me, just me, a beach, and silence. The agent looked at her screen, frowned, then looked at me. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your ticket has been cancelled. I blinked. What? No, that's not possible. I booked this weeks ago. She clicked a few more times, her expression sympathetic but firm. It shows here it was cancelled this morning. By the account holder. My stomach dropped. The account holder, my mother. I'd used the family travel account because she'd insisted months ago that I should, that it was easier, that we were family, and it made sense. I should have known better. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Mom, have fun walking home, loser. I stared at the words. My hands started shaking. Not from sadness, not from hurt, from rage. Another text. This one from Dad. Maybe next time you'll think twice before being so selfish. Your sister needed that money for her new apartment furniture. Leah, of course. It always came back to Leah. I stood there, frozen, people moving around me, boarding calls echoing through the terminal. The woman behind me in line cleared her throat impatiently. A toddler somewhere was crying. The world kept moving, indifferent to the fact that mine had just collapsed again. I felt small, invisible, just like I always had, but then something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked open, and what came out wasn't tears. I turned away from the counter, my jaw tight, and walked toward the exit. My fingers were already opening my contacts. I had calls to make, because what my mother didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't the same powerless girl they'd spent my entire life grinding down. I'd spent years building something in secret, something solid, something they couldn't touch, and they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Let me take you back. Let me show you how we got here. I was always too sensitive. That's what they told me. When I was 7 and cried because Dad forgot my birthday. Too sensitive. When I was 12 and Mom said I was the reason she couldn't be happy. Too sensitive. When I was 15 and Leah told everyone at school I was a liar and my parents believed her without question. Too sensitive. There were 1,000 small cruelties. The Christmas when I was 10 and Leah got the expensive art set she'd wanted, and I got 3 pairs of socks. You're more practical, Mom had said, as if that made it fair. The graduation where Dad spent the entire ceremony on his phone because he was bored. But 2 years later took a week off work for Leah's. The time I won a scholarship to university and Mom's first response was, well, someone had to give you charity eventually. By 16, I learned to stop crying where they could see. I got a job at a coffee shop, smelling like espresso and burnt milk every night. Saved every penny in a showbox under my bed because I didn't trust them not to raid a bank account. The day I turned 18, they told me I needed to start paying rent or get out. Leah was 20, still living at home rent-free, but that was different. She was going to college. She had potential. I was just taking up space. I moved out within a month, into a tiny studio apartment that smelled like mildew and the Thai restaurant downstairs. I worked 2 jobs: morning shift at a bakery, evening shift waitressing. I put myself through community college, then university. I studied finance because I was good with numbers and because I knew, somewhere deep down, that money meant freedom. I never asked them for a dime. I didn't go to them when I was struggling to pay rent and utilities in the same month. I didn't tell them when I got promoted to a junior analyst position. I didn't tell them when I met someone, fell in love, got pregnant, got left when he decided fatherhood wasn't for him after all. I raised my son, Ethan, alone. He's 8 now. The best thing I ever did. The only time my parents met him was at the hospital, where Mom spent 10 minutes holding him before handing him back and saying, well, I hope you're ready for this. Babies are exhausting. They didn't visit again for 6 months. My family didn't visit. Didn't call unless they needed something. A loan they'd never repay. Someone to watch the house while they vacationed. Tech support because I knew about computers. Mom would text once every few months, usually to tell me Leah was doing something amazing. Getting engaged, buying a car, winning an award. And always, there was the unspoken comparison. Why couldn't I be more like her? But I kept working, kept saving, kept investing. I was good with numbers, really good. I started small index funds, blue chip stocks, real estate investment trusts. I read everything I could get my hands on. I learned about compound interest and dollar cost averaging and tax-advantaged accounts. I lived below my means, drove a 15-year-old Honda, bought clothes at thrift stores. And slowly, carefully, I built a quiet, careful fortune that no one knew about. I didn't live flashy. I didn't brag. I just kept building. 5 years ago, my parents' house, the house I grew up in, the house where Leah still lived in her old bedroom surrounded by participation trophies and pageant crowns, went into foreclosure. Dad's business had failed, a landscaping company that collapsed when he spent more time at the bar than managing his crews. They were going to lose everything. Mom called me, crying, begging. It was the first time she'd called in 8 months. For once, they needed me. I bought the house. Paid cash through an LLC I'd set up, Redwood Properties Management, Anonymous. I hired a property management company to handle it. Had them draw up a rental agreement at significantly below market rate. My parents thought some investor had bought it and was letting them rent it cheap out of kindness. They had no idea it was me. They never even asked who owned it. I told myself I did it because, despite everything, they were still my parents. Because I didn't want to see them homeless. Because maybe, somewhere deep down, I still hoped they'd see me. Really see me. That one day something would click and they'd realize I'd been there all along, trying, surviving, succeeding without their help or approval. But they never did. When I quietly paid off the property taxes they'd forgotten about, they thought it was a county error in their favor. When I had the ancient furnace replaced so Ethan wouldn't freeze during his rare visits there, they assumed their landlord was finally doing his job. They never connected the dots, never wondered, never asked. Leah moved back in 2 years ago after her engagement fell apart. The wedding that Mom had spent $20,000 helping to plan, money they borrowed from their retirement account. Leah didn't pay rent either. She's going through a hard time, Mom said when I asked, during one of our strained, obligatory phone calls. Of course she was. Leah was always going through something that required the entire family's resources and sympathy. Last month, I decided I needed a break. Just a few days. Ethan was going to stay with his best friend's family, the Johnsons, who treated him like their own and asked me more about my life in 5 minutes than my parents had in years. I booked a small resort, nothing fancy, just quiet, a place by the ocean where I could read and sleep and remember what it felt like to not be constantly wound tight, waiting for the next crisis. I made the mistake of mentioning it to Mom during one of her rare calls. She'd actually called to ask if I could lend Leah money for a security deposit on a new apartment. When I said I couldn't right now, there was this silence, this cold, heavy silence. Then she said, "Must be nice to have money to waste on vacations while your family struggles." I should have known then, should have seen it coming, should have recognized the tone, the sharpness underneath the words that meant I'd crossed some invisible line by daring to prioritize myself. But I didn't cancel the trip. I didn't change my plans. I thought, just this once, I could do something for myself. I was wrong now. Standing outside the airport, my phone buzzing with more texts from my parents' mockery and cruelty wrapped in casual words. Leah chiming in with a "maybe you should learn to budget better." I realized something. I was done being soft. I made the first call from my car, hands still shaking but voice steady. "Hi, yes. I need to begin eviction proceedings." The lawyer I'd kept on retainer, another secret, answered on the second ring. I'd hired her a year ago, after Ethan came home from a weekend at his grandparents' house and asked me why Grandma said I was too stupid to make good choices. Just in case, I'd told myself. Just in case I ever needed to protect us. Now I needed to. The next few days were a blur. I didn't go on my trip. I didn't rest. I worked. I gathered documents, rental agreements, payment records, bank statements, every email from the property management company, every receipt. I had everything, every piece of paper that proved I owned that house, that I had been their silent landlord for 5 years, that I had, in my own quiet way, saved them. I also had something else, something I'd started doing 6 months ago when Ethan came home from a visit to his grandparents' house in tears. He'd heard them talking about me, calling me a failure, saying I was a burden, saying he'd probably turn out just as useless, that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He'd asked me if it was true, if he was going to be a loser like they said I was. My 8-year-old son, looking at me with his father's eyes and my stubborn chin, asking if he was destined to fail. That was the night I'd stopped making excuses for them, stopped trying to maintain the bridge they'd been burning from both ends my entire life. I'd installed a small recording app on my phone after that. I didn't use it often, just during calls with them, just in case, because I'd learned, finally, that they would always deny it, always gaslight, always rewrite history to make me the villain. And I'd recorded the conversation 3 days before my trip, the one where Mom and Dad discussed canceling my ticket. I'd called to confirm the flight details, mention I was excited, actually let my guard down for just a moment. After we'd hung up, I'd heard a click. She hadn't ended the call properly, and I'd heard them, clear as day. Mom, she actually thinks she's going on vacation, like she's earned it. Dad, cancel the ticket tomorrow morning. Right before she gets to the airport. Let her feel it, Mom, laughing that sharp, mean laugh I'd heard my whole life. She'll cry. She always cries. God, she's pathetic. Dad, she needs to learn her place. She's always been the weak one. Leah's voice in the background. Did you cancel it yet? I need that refund to clear. I'd saved it. Backed it up to 3 different locations. And now, I was going to use it. 1 week after the airport, I drove to the house. My house, I hadn't been inside in 2 years. They never invited me. The last time I'd been there was Ethan's 6th birthday, when we'd stopped by with cookies I'd made. Mom had put them on the counter and never offered them to anyone. I'd found them in the trash when I went to throw away Ethan's juice box. I knocked on the door I'd paid for. Standing on the porch I'd had repaired. Mom opened the door, her face twisting into a sneer when she saw me. What do you want? Not hello, not how are you. Just immediate hostility, like my presence was an affront. I need to talk to all of you, I said. My voice was calm, steady. I'd practiced it in the mirror that morning. She rolled her eyes but let me in. Dad was on the couch, watching a golf tournament. Leah was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, a glass of wine in her hand at 2 in the afternoon. The house looked different than I remembered, smaller, shabbier, or maybe I'd just grown larger than the space they'd tried to keep me in. I set my bag down on the coffee table, the same coffee table where I'd done homework while Leah got help from tutors we couldn't afford. Pulled out 3 envelopes, plain, white, official. What's this? Dad asked, not even looking up from his phone. Eviction notices, I said. The room went silent. Even the television seemed to quiet, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Leah laughed first. That same dismissive laugh she'd perfected in high school. What? Mom's face turned red. You can't evict us. We live here. This is our house. No, I said, my voice still calm, still steady. It's my house. I bought it 5 years ago. I own it. And you've been renting from me this entire time. Dad stood up now, his face dark with that old familiar rage that used to send me running to my room. But I didn't flinch, didn't step back. I held my ground. That's a lie. You don't have that kind of money. You're just a what, Dad? I cut him off, my voice sharp now. A loser, a failure, a waste of space. That's what you've called me my whole life, isn't it? I pulled out the next set of papers. Deed, LLC documents, purchase agreement, bank statements showing the wire transfer, property tax receipts, 5 years of rental payment records. I laid them on the table, one by one, like a poker player revealing a royal flush. Mom's hands were shaking as she picked them up. Her eyes scanned the pages, growing wider with each one. I watched the realization hit her, watched the color drain from her face, watched her see me, truly see me, for the first time in my life, not as her disappointing daughter, but as someone with power over her. How? I worked, I said simply. I saved, I invested, I built something. While you were busy tearing me down, I was building myself up. While you were telling me I'd never amount to anything, I was proving you wrong. Every single day. Leah snatched the papers from Mom, her hands leaving wine-sticky fingerprints on the documents. This is insane. You can't just kick us out. We're your family, I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. You canceled my ticket. You mocked me. You've spent my entire life making me feel worthless. And when I finally tried to do something for myself, you sabotaged it. For what? Furniture money for Leah? Mom's face hardened, shifting from shock to defensive anger. You've always been so dramatic. We were teaching you a lesson. You were being selfish, spending money on yourself when we needed help. Selfish, I said, almost laughing. The sound came out harsh, broken. I was taking 3 days. 3 days in 32 years. And that was selfish. But Leah living here rent-free for 2 years isn't. Leah getting thousands of dollars for a wedding that never happened isn't. Me paying for this house and letting you live here for a fraction of what it's worth isn't enough. Dad stepped forward, his voice low and threatening, trying to use his size to intimidate me the way he had when I was small. You think you can come in here and threaten us? We're your parents. You owe us respect. You owe us everything. We raised you. You raised me? I felt something inside me break free. Something I'd kept chained for decades. You raised me to believe I was worthless. You raised me to think love was conditional and I'd never meet the conditions. You raised me to be small and quiet and grateful for scraps. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, pressed play. Their voices filled the room, clear, unmistakable, undeniable. Mom, she actually thinks she's going on vacation. Like she's earned it. Dad, cancel the ticket tomorrow morning, right before she gets to the airport. Let her feel it, Mom, laughing. She'll cry. She always cries. God, she's pathetic. Dad, she needs to learn her place. She's always been the weak one. Leah, did you cancel it yet? I need that refund to clear. The recording ended. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, Someone's phone buzzing. The sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. Leah looked at Mom and Dad, her face pale. You actually did that. You said those things. For a moment, I saw something in her face. Something that might have been recognition, guilt. Even Mom's jaw clenched. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape, an excuse. We were joking. You know how we joke. You've always taken things too seriously. That didn't sound like a joke, I said quietly. That sounded like cruelty. That sounded like you enjoyed hurting me. Like it gave you pleasure to watch me fail. You recorded us. Dad's voice was shaking now, but not with anger, with fear. He understood, perhaps before the others did, what this meant. What I could do with it, I did, I said, because I needed to protect myself. Because every time I told someone how you treated me, you'd deny it. You'd make me seem crazy, too sensitive, like I was making it up. So I needed proof. And I needed to protect my son. He heard you, by the way. 6 months ago. Heard you call me a failure. Heard you say he'd probably end up like me, useless and pathetic. He cried himself to sleep that night. My 8-year-old son cried because his grandparents made him believe he was worthless before he'd even had a chance to become anything. Mom opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. You don't get to do that anymore. I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word. You don't get to make him feel small the way you made me feel small. You don't get to steal his joy and his confidence and his future. So yes, you're being evicted. You have 30 days. And if you try to fight this, I'll make sure everyone hears that recording. Your friends, your church, Leah's employer, everyone. I'll post it online. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. Leah was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Where are we supposed to go? I looked at her, my sister, the golden child, the one who'd always been chosen, always been protected, always been enough. For a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for her. She'd been damaged by them too, in different ways. Taught that love meant always taking, never giving. That the world would always bend to accommodate her. That other people's pain didn't matter if it benefited her. But that wasn't my responsibility to fix. I don't know, Leah, I said. But I'm sure you'll figure it out. You always do. You always land on your feet, and someone always catches you. Maybe this time you'll learn to catch yourself. I picked up my bag, turned toward the door. Mom's voice cracked behind me. You can't do this. We're your family, please. We raised you. We gave you life. I stopped, didn't turn around, couldn't look at them anymore. No, I said. You gave birth to me. That's not the same thing as raising me. And family doesn't treat each other like this. Family doesn't tear each other down for fun. Family doesn't celebrate each other's pain. Family doesn't cancel plane tickets and laugh about it. I opened the door. Sunlight streamed in, warm and bright. I have a family, I said. His name is Ethan, and he's all I need. I walked out, got in my car, drove away, and I didn't look back. Not even once. The 30 days passed slowly. They tried to call. I didn't answer. They tried to text. I blocked them. Leah showed up at my apartment once, crying, begging me to reconsider. I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole as she finally left. Slumped and defeated. Dad sent an email. Long, rambling, full of justifications and excuses and accusations. I deleted it without reading past the first paragraph. Mom sent a card, an actual card, like this was a birthday or graduation. Inside, she'd written, "You're making a mistake. You'll regret this when we're gone." Maybe I would. But I'd regret staying even more. My lawyer handled everything, professional, clean, legal, no loopholes, no room for them to worm their way back in. On the 31st day, I drove by the house. The moving truck was gone. The windows were empty, curtains removed. Blinds open to vacant rooms. I parked, sat there for a long moment, engine idling. Then I turned off the car and walked up to the door. It was unlocked. Inside. The house was bare. They'd taken everything, furniture, decorations. The terrible painting of a lighthouse that had hung in the hallway for 20 years, the walls had lighter squares where frames had been, ghosts of a family that had never really existed. On the mantel, there was a photo, old, faded, somehow overlooked in their hasty exit. The four of us, me, maybe 6 years old, smiling with missing front teeth, Mom and Dad on either side. Looking young and happy, Leah holding my hand. We looked happy. I picked it up, stared at it for a long moment, tried to remember if that happiness had been real, or if I'd imagined it even then, desperate for something that was never really there. Then I set it back down. Next to it, I placed a new photo I'd brought with me and Ethan, taken last week at the park. Both of us laughing at something he'd said, his sense of humor sharp and bright, his arm around my shoulder, my hand in his hair. Both of us wearing matching ridiculous grins. I pulled out a small card. Wrote on it in careful letters, "This is the family I choose." I left it there, walked through the empty rooms one last time. Each space held a memory: the kitchen where I'd learned to cook because mom couldn't be bothered. The bathroom where I'd hidden when they fought. The bedroom that had been mine before it became Leah's craft room. My existence erased without ceremony. I said goodbye to it all, not with sadness, but with release. I walked out, locked the door behind me, dropped the keys in the mailbox. That night, Ethan and I made dinner together, just us. Spaghetti with meat sauce, his favorite. He told me about school, about his friends, about the new book he was reading, some fantasy thing with dragons and magic, that he described in breathless detail while waving a wooden spoon for emphasis. He didn't ask about my parents. He'd stopped asking months ago. After I gently explained that sometimes people aren't capable of being who we need them to be, and that was okay. We got to choose who we let into our lives. After dinner, we sat on the couch. He leaned against me, his head on my shoulder, his small warm weight the most grounding thing I'd ever felt. "Mom," he said quietly. "Yeah, bud, are you happy?" I looked down at him. "My son, my whole world. The person who'd taught me what unconditional love actually meant, not that you tolerate abuse, but that you love someone without needing them to earn it. Without keeping score, without conditions." "Yeah," I said, "I really am." And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I meant it. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was Leah. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it was that bad. I should have seen it. I should have stopped them. I don't know, I was selfish. You were always stronger than me. I know that now. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, wanted to believe her, wanted to think maybe someday we could be something other than strangers shaped by the same trauma. That maybe she'd wake up and realize what they'd done to both of us in different ways. But not today, maybe not ever. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Some things, once broken, are better left in pieces than badly glued back together. I deleted the message, put my phone down, pulled Ethan closer. "Movie night?" I asked. He grinned. "Movie night." We turned on something silly, something light. An animated movie about talking animals that made us both laugh. We ate popcorn, we were happy, and somewhere across town, in whatever new place they'd landed, my parents were learning what it felt like to lose something they'd taken for granted, to face consequences for once in their lives. To realize, perhaps, that cruelty has a cost. I didn't feel guilty, I didn't feel sad, I felt free, because I'd finally learned something they'd spent my whole life trying to teach me, but in a way they never intended. I learned that I didn't need their love to be worthy. I didn't need their approval to be valuable. I didn't need their acceptance to be whole. I just needed to see myself the way I'd always deserved to be seen. As enough. As strong. As someone who could walk away from people who hurt her, even if they were blood, and build something better. I'd spent 32 years being too sensitive, too soft, too weak, but I wasn't any of those things. I was just done. And that made all the difference.